Hello, this is Daniel Burrus. Welcome to the webinar. And in this webinar, I want to emphasize I will not be selling or marketing anything. This webinar is really for you. It's to help you rethink your personal, your professional, your organizational life, what you're doing now, and try to give you some new perspectives on thinking about it. If we can change our mindset, we can change our results. And right now there's a lot of mindsets that need to be shifted because we're in such a unique time. Last week, I did an open webinar like this one, where again, I was not selling or promoting, I was trying to help. And I had only intended on doing one. And that one was around, you have more control than you think. And again, we have a huge global registration for this one. I'm really happy about it. People all over the world. We did for the last one as well. And one of the reasons I decided to do another one was I planned on only going an hour. There were so many great questions that were coming in that I ended up extending it to an hour and a half. And at an hour and a half, there were over 50 questions still that I was not able to get to, and there were some really good ones. And I think we can learn from each other. So in the moment, I decided, okay, I'm gonna do another one right now. And I'm gonna focus a little less on my content, because you're gonna get my content in the question and answer, and a little more on question and answer this time, so we can try to get to everyone. By the way, when we do the question and answer in a little while, I prefer to hear your voice. I think it's an important part of our world, is to be connected and to hear each other. And I would love for us to be able to do that. You can type in a question at the bottom, but frankly, it would be better to raise your hand, and Jennifer in my office will select you, and you can turn your mic off and we can all hear you. That way we have a few minutes for dialogue. All right, this time I'm focusing the subject on the fact that right now humankind is in a defining moment, perhaps one bigger and wilder than we've ever experienced in history. And I don't want us to squander it. You know, last time when I was talking, there was a couple of concepts that I shared that kind of tee up what I want to talk about this time as well. And I just want to repeat, not much from last time, but one, and it was a big one. And that is that I would like us to shift from a personal inner focus, which typically in a not such an extraordinary time, it's focused on success. And success, of course, is all about you. It's all about your company. It's all about how much wealth you've done, how many plaques you have on the wall, all of the great accomplishments you've had, how big the car is, how fast the company is growing, how many new employees we have. That's all about us. What I want us to do to really not squander this defining moment is to make sure we're focusing on significance. How can you as an individual elevate your significance? Because significance is about what we do for others, how we impact others, how we influence others in a positive way. So this is the time, if you want to not squander this defining moment, to think of significance versus success as a company, as an organization, as a mom, as a dad, as a brother, as a sister, as a grandma, as a grandpa. And we can do that together. So let me stimulate you in some new ways that I didn't before. One is to pick on social distancing, just a minute, and that concept, because everywhere you're hearing social distancing. And by the way, we should be distancing, but it should not be social distancing. You know what, we picked the wrong word. Let's face it, humans are social creatures. It's about human connection. That's what it's all about. That's why we don't like being caged in our home, hoping the virus won't attack us and won't spread as fast. So I think we named it wrong. It should not be social distancing. Actually, what we should call it is physical distancing, because it's about the physical distance from each other. That's 6 feet and more if you can do it. And by the way, physical distancing is imperative. You need to be doing that. Last week I shared, and in articles for the last month before that, I had been talking about the predictability of the spread of the virus. And it doubles every 3 days. We've known that since Wuhan in China. And that doubling creates an exponential arc that goes crazy. And those that were here last week can look at the numbers this week and see, whoa, that's happening. That is happening. and the numbers are not good. But that is what I call a soft trend. Remember, I talk about hard trends being future facts, soft trends being based on an assumption that could be changed. And the way we change it is social distancing, locking down. So let me just talk about social distancing versus physical distancing. You need to physically distance. I want you to do the opposite when it comes to social, because doing the opposite is something I've been teaching for a long time. I even call it the law of opposites. And that is, I want you to get more social as you're physically distancing. Now, here's what I mean by that. Make a call. Call people you haven't talked to, you haven't connected to. Talk to people maybe you don't even know that might be needy or you might think are in trouble. Let's be more social as we practice physical distancing. And there are many great ways to do that. And I'm not going to go through all those ways. I think you're really smart. You can come up with your own. So let's not social distance, let's physical distance. And by the way, let's get the word out on that to others. Let's take a minute to talk about how businesses can rethink the situation they're in. I was talking to a friend that has a good buddy in LA, and his name is Bob Hebler, and he was talking to a friend who has a Fresno dry cleaners in LA, 9 locations, and they are in trouble, just like most other small businesses. Man, they are in trouble. Why? Well, you're not getting your shirt pressed right now because you're not going to the office. It's remote. You're not getting your suit done. You're not getting your pants. You're not getting your dress. You're not getting your, all that stuff isn't happening. Their business is already down 90% and dropping like a rock. He's going to have to close down. At least that's what he thought. But I want you to think different. That's what a focus on you does. That's what a focus on your store's success measured in the way you've always measured it was. But what if we were a significant dry cleaner? What if we looked at how could we be hiring people instead of firing people or laying people off? How could we expand instead of contract? And the answer is, let's look at our business and our market in a little different way. Instead of looking at all of our current customers that don't need us right now anymore, and we don't know how long they're not going to need us, and instead, who does need cleaning? And by the way, it's more than just dry cleaning. That's only one option at a dry cleaners, of course, is regular cleaning. Who has new needs? And the answer is many. For example, we can go to grocery stores. We can go to pharmacies. There's all those employees that are being hired. Matter of fact, hundreds of thousands of Walmart people are being hired. All of the grocery store chains are hiring like crazy. Everybody is hiring because we need people in there, and their clothes can get exposed to the virus, not just their hands and their mask, if they're wise enough to start using those and have found a way to do that. We'll talk about that in a minute. So what should they really be doing? Well, they should be getting those clothes washed. How often? Actually, they should wash them every day. And since dry cleaners already have delivery services, and by the way, if you don't, you surely could. Once again, there's a lot of Uber and Lyft drivers that aren't going to bars and restaurants. Let's give them somewhere to go. They could be hauling things back and forth. And there is a way to even do that and keep those clothes in a semi-contaminated situation or bag, bring them in, wash them, and then get them back. I mean, that could be huge itself. What about first responders? What about police officers? I mean, typically they have uniform companies that come in and clean uniforms, but they don't do it on a daily basis. They don't do it that often. They do it more on a weekly basis or longer. But right now, we should be doing it a lot more often than that. Maybe we could step up to the plate. Maybe some of them we could do for free. Maybe there are people that are healthcare workers that are coming home in their civvies, in their regular clothes, but they ought to be cleaned more often because they are really worried about infecting their families. Why don't we help ease their mind a little bit and do that for free? Why don't we help them with that? By helping people and doing some things for free, we could actually grow our company, hire people, and make more money. If you look at how can we be significant, what is the new market? I'll put it to you this way. There's a hidden market for everyone listening right now. Why didn't you see that hidden market before? The reason you didn't see that hidden market before is you didn't need to look. you are doing quite well milking the current cash cow. And we get really comfortable milking the cash cow. By the way, the more we milk the cash cow, the more it gets commoditized and the less profits there are, but we just keep on milking and expanding and growing. What I would like us to reconsider here is, what are the bouncing baby new cash cows we should be starting right now that could grow tremendously? As a matter of fact, they might grow exponentially. The markets you have never looked at, the markets you've never served. Back in the last great recession that we had, 2008, 2009, when we had the mortgage meltdown, the banks meltdown, nobody had any money. And I thought to myself, I was writing one of my books, Flash Foresight at the time, and I thought, why don't I apply some principles in the book to starting a business and seeing if we could do something with it with no employees and no money? Because after all, I was busy. I was writing a book, I was giving speeches, I was consulting. And one of the things I did is an opposite that fits here. And I thought to myself, who does have money? Well, back at that point, I came up with the Pentagon. They got money. You know, banks don't, but the Pentagon does. And I thought, I wonder, since smartphones were early and we really only had smartphone apps that were like games, that's how to make a smartphone. When you hold it up and do this, it looks like a beer when you drink it, 99 cents. That was the kind of apps we had at the time. And I thought, I wonder if the military has thought about smartphones and have been playing around with them. And I thought, you know, I bet there have. And then I thought, I wonder if anybody's developing apps for them. And I thought, well, probably not, because even the ones that are developing apps now it's more games and toys. So I thought, why don't I do that? So I did. I actually developed the first with the help of a couple of students to be able to launch the first military app. By the way, you have to be a defense contractor to get in. Well, I skipped that problem, another thing I love to do. And I found a defense contractor that I could partner with that could get it in without me having to go through all the time and logistics and hassles. You see, you can skip all of your problems to move forward faster. And we developed an app for Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the biggest military base on planet Earth. Figured if they would like it, others would. It was an emergency response app because I really don't want to help hurt people, but rather to help people, and you can do that if you'd like. And it worked really well. So what's my point? My point is there are many ways that you can rethink what is the market, because right now you think there is no market. Yes, there is. There's companies growing like crazy. Take a look at Instacart. You know, I'm looking down here because I just jotted a couple of quick notes. Instacart, they have currently, before this, 12,000 in-store shoppers, full-time, by the way. They have 130,000 people that are working full-time right now, delivering things. And guess what they need right now? They need 300,000 more. By the way, are they willing to pay more? Yeah, because everybody needs things delivered. So you can even make more than you could before, and they're hiring 300,000 more. And who else is hiring? Businesses are hiring like crazy as businesses are laying off. So what I'm getting is there's an ebb and flow. Needs change, but needs don't go away. So what's the new need? So I don't care if you're a dry cleaner or what kind of business you've got, as you're starting to think, boy, I got to contract. Matter of fact, I was just talking to somebody a couple of days ago who's a small business person, and their phrase was, you know, I'm having to really scale back and look at, you know, scale back everything that I do like this. And once again, I said that is a rear view mirror view of your world. It's not a windshield view. You're not looking at the new world we're in right now, at least the current situation, which, by the way, will not be cured in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And ask ourselves, what are the new needs? And based on what I do, how can I bring that forward? Another thing I'd like you to do, and as you can see, I just kind of free flow here, but I would like you to, think, you know, what are your core competencies? Now, maybe you haven't really thought of that before. Now I'm talking about you as an individual. What are your talents? What is your unique gift? It'd be good to know what your unique gift is. Probably you may not know what that is, but at least you know what your talents are right now. And if you're a small company, what's your core competency? And by the way, are you still good at it? reason I mentioned that is I'm recalling talking to a CEO a couple of years ago of a Fortune 150 company. And before working with them, they talked about how they were an innovative culture, an innovative company. They were an innovative organization. It was a global company. And I looked at their products, looked at everything, and I had a private meeting with the CEO. And I said, you're an innovative company. And he said, oh yeah, we pride ourselves on being an innovative company. So then I did, this kind of thing that I do. I said, so when was the last time you did something innovative? And what was it? And there was a long pause. It was actually a long pause. And he really thought about it. And he said, wow, it's been 10 years. And I said, so would it be fair to say you were an innovative company instead of you are an innovative company if it's been 10 years? And he just kind of was cold-faced and didn't even answer. And I said, would you like to be an innovative company again, or are you happy to having used to be an innovative company? And his eyes lit up to, well, I got to be an innovative company. Well, does that mean you'd have to do something different now than you've been doing for the last 10 years? And by the way, if you do what you've done for the last 10 years, will you be an innovative company? See, he already knew the answer, because I think if you ask the right questions, you can always get the right answers. Why did I bring up that story? Because I'm throwing it to you. You think you know what you do. You think you know the product or the service that you provide, but what is it that you're really providing? You think you know the needs, but what are the real needs? You think you know the problem, so what is the real problem? I've been really good at solving impossible problems, whether it be at the Pentagon or for different government leaders. I've been good at that. And my key is, I know whatever problem you say you've got, that's not it. It's something else. And when you dig down to find what the real problem is, you'll find every single problem is actually solvable. So you've got a lot of problems you're dealing with. Brings me to another guy I talked to just recently, owner of another fairly large company. And he said, I don't have time to innovate. I don't have time to look through the windshield. I don't have time to plan. I'll do that after I get done with the crisis. I'm too busy managing all of the issues and putting out fires. Pretty easy to predict you're going to have a lot more fires and you're going to drown. Because what you need to do is be a little bit more anticipatory, looking at what are the fires you can see happening down the road so that you can put those out before they even happen, rather than deal with the blaze. It's kind of like right now in the United States, we have been very slow to do what we know you have to do when there is a pandemic or when there is an outbreak. You've got to quarantine, you've got to lock down. That's the only way you can keep that curve from that virus from every 3 days doubling and it getting out of control. By the way, as a nation, we still have not locked down. There are governors that have not locked down because they're not in crisis. And I would say, yet, how would you like to not get in crisis? Why don't you lock down now so it doesn't get that way? Because it's a lot harder to deal with the fire when the fire's on you than it is when you see a little one propping up over the horizon and you can go and put it out so it never gets to you. So what I'm getting at is you need to devote a little bit of time to opportunity management, not just crisis management right now. Because I know you're all in crisis, we all are. But I would like you to consider spending an hour a week unplugging from your personal, your business, your family, all of the crisis you're in, and step back and ask yourself, what do I know instead of all the things you don't know? What am I certain about instead of all the things you aren't certain about? What can I act on instead of all the thousands of things you can't act on? And you'll find you'll actually get a list. And if you pick one, you can find a way to go forward. There's a lot of companies that are doing significant things. Let me just, I jotted down a few notes. Let me make sure I can remember them. How about Brooks Brothers? They have re-geared up and they're making 150,000 masks because they can sew, they can put them together, they can do that. Wow, thank you, Brooks Brothers. They're doing something significant. What about Ford? Wow, I love this one. Ford is working and got 500 United Auto Workers to volunteer to put themselves at risk and come in to work to make ventilators. What am I talking about here? Just think about this for a second. We got management, Ford, and we got labor, and they usually kind of clash with each other. They kind of butt heads. But you know what? They both rose to significance Why? Because this is a defining moment, that's why. And you're either going to shrink down or you're going to rise up. And they rose up. And they're all putting each other at risk. For who? For you. So they can make the ventilators we need. That's what I'm talking about. And by the way, when this pandemic ends, and it will we have a little different relationship between the United Auto Workers and Ford? I would suggest yes, because we're coming together in a new way, and we're learning the power of putting all of the stuff we've been squabbling about for years off to the side. As a matter of fact, let me just put it to you this way, and that is fixing the blame is different than fixing the problem, and people that fix the blame actually make the problem worse. Think about that a minute. The minute you blame somebody for something, they become your enemy, and they're not helping you in a significant way solve the problem. They're now working against you because you blame them. They're not your friend. They've now become your enemy. We don't need enemies. We need to be all working together. Actually, it just makes the problem worse. So instead of fixing the blame, we need to be fixing the problem and working on the right problem. So as you are looking out there in the media, and you're looking out there in the press, and you're looking out there with who's stepping up to the plate, just ask yourself, who's fixing the problem, who's fixing the blame, and you'll start to see how we're moving forward. It's a simple little litmus test. Okay, how about another one? MIT, oh man, love this. MIT came together, got a bunch of students together, and my guess is they probably saw the movie Apollo 13, which, as you know, with Tom Hanks in there, and talking about how all of a sudden they were on the way to the moon and they had a catastrophic accident and they had to solve some problems. And they put a bunch of stuff on the table and said, we got to come up with a way of getting rid of the carbon dioxide and getting oxygen to these guys, or they're going to be dead soon. All we got is this. You figure out how to do it, because the parts don't fit together. We can't make it work. And they did it. So anyway, what did MIT do? They said, can we make a ventilator, except not a normal ventilator, made in the normal way, because that costs let me get the number right. I like to have numbers right. $30,000 a ventilator. That's a lot of money. And they're expensive and they're heavy. Is there a way we could do one cheap? What kind of parts, what kind of things do we have in a hospital? Well, let's do like they did in the Apollo 13 movie. Let's just put a bunch of stuff on the table and say, all right, here's what's normal stuff in a hospital. Could we make a ventilator with it? And the answer they came up with, actually we can, using a bag ventilator. Maybe you've seen those on the movies where they've got a little bag about this big and a person is pumping it like this to a person who has a mask over it like this. That is actually a ventilator, except it requires somebody to do that to it. What other parts could we hook up to make that work? Because there's a lot of those bag ventilators and every hospital are loaded with them. Could we make that work? They came up with a way to do it. And the cost is $100 to be able to use common supplies and make a ventilator. And they've already posted it online. Now, it's not FDA approved yet. Yeah, okay. So they just posted it online and said, hey, look, you guys are in crisis. You need a ventilator. Here's how to do it. Go try it out. See what you think. It works. I love that. That's significant. Thank you. Hey, you could be doing this. We could all be doing this. Why? Because we're creative people. I mean, do I have optimism about the future? Yes. Why? Because of us humans. Here's why. You know, most of you know I taught biology and physics. I've got, science has been my world, but you may not know, very few, I don't even think my brothers and sisters know this, but my minor in my undergraduate minor was in history. Why the heck would a futurist want a minor in history? Well, yeah. First of all, history tends to repeat itself, and a lot of things you can learn from history, even recent history. So in this case, you can look at history and see the future quite a bit. For example, if I look back at what did they learn and what did they do in China, in South Korea, in Taiwan, where they've actually been able to keep that curve from going up. Of course, it is locking down and really locking down tight. Physical distancing, not social distancing. I'm bringing that back up again. So let's go to an antibody test. Whoa, love this one too. We've got Thermogenesis, which is a California-based company, has come out with an antibody test. This is a different kind of test than we've been using so far. The one that we've been using so far is a swab. They do it of your throat. You can do a drive-in window of that, and they can see if you have the virus. And of course, we're still trying to get that out there, which is really important because we need to know who has it and who doesn't. But what they did was they came up with a $30 test. It's a pinprick blood test, because what they got to do is look at the antibodies in your blood. And this is important, really significant. And the reason that's important and significant is because we will know if you've got it or not, but better yet, we'll know if you've had it, which means you're immune. At least we think you're immune. Up to now, it looks like all of the other coronaviruses that exist, there are more than this one. If you've had it, you become immune. We don't know that as 100% fact yet for this one, but because it is another form of coronavirus and all the other ones did that, it's very likely, that's a soft trend, but it's a one based on research, meaning it's more likely than other soft trends that aren't researched. So in this case, it's looking really good, and they're already moving that along and fast tracking it like that. Before I open this up to some questions, because again, I was here to try to stimulate you on different treatments that we have. A lot of companies stepping up to the plate, GM, Tesla, all sorts. I mean, I love seeing how people are being creative and again, doing something during this defining moment. I don't want you or anyone else to squander it. It's really important that we step up. Because again, why did I bring up my history and my looking at my minor in history? Because here's what I've learned in looking at history. Humans are at their very best when things are at their very worst. And I got historical proof of that going way back. It's one of my big takeaways from my minor in history. Well, we're kind of in a bad situation right now, and I think that's where the very best rise up and do something. And I know everyone on this, in this right now, you're that kind of person. I know you are. I know that's why you connected with this. So let's make sure we do it and rise to the occasion. All right, let's take some questions. I have a few other comments I'm going to make. I'm going to try to keep it at an hour. Last time I intended to do an hour, and again, I extended it to an hour and a half because the questions were so good. Also, I talked for almost 40 minutes. This time I'm only talking for 30. And, but here's something else I decided to do. This is a critical month, April, for all of us around the world. Actually, March was a critical month, and I would call it, in many places, the lost month, because there were things we could have done in March that would have flattened the curve long ago. But you know, I'm not a blame prickster. I don't look at that. I don't even want to think about that. I look to the future. I want to know, what can I do now to change? I don't want to look at why did all that stuff not happen. Frankly, I want you to do that too. I don't want to be looking at the past. I want to be looking at the future and what I can do right now. So, so I've decided that for this month, I'm going to each Friday at this time have another webinar. The next one, by the way, I've already decided, I'm going to call it why the cost of a no just got very expensive. And again, I'm going to talk for a while, give you some ideas, give you some examples, and then take questions. Same time, same place. By the way, you'll have to re-register for that. And so there's no confusion. If you want to jot it down, I'm going to make it burrus.com, burrus.com/webinar, but put a 3 next to it because it'll be the third webinar. My intent is only to do them, again, I was only going to do one. I'm just going to do them through April just because I'm here to help, and then we'll see how we're doing at that point. Questions. If you have a question, raise your hand down at the bottom, and Jennifer in my office, who is amazing, by the way, she will give me a name, and you have to go to the bottom, lower left of your screen, and unmute your microphone so that I can hear you. And then I'll give you the best answer I can. Let's get some questions.
Okay, thanks, Dan. So our first question comes from Audrey Adams.
Okay, I can see your mic isn't unmuted yet. Go down to the bottom and unmute that mic, and then I'll be able to hear you. You got to take your mouse down to the bottom of the window. You should see a little pop-up, and you can turn your mic on. If you can't get it soon, we'll come back to Audrey and have to go to another one. You may be having trouble with your mic. Okay, let's take another one,
Yep.
and we'll try Audrey again if you can get that worked out. Sorry.
Sounds good. Let's go to Glenn Ebersol.
All right, Glenn. Hey,
Hey,
you're working.
Daniel. Yeah, it's working. Hey, great. Thanks. I really appreciated your insight on the changing of terms, and I've already put something up on my LinkedIn page about physical distancing rather than social. But my question ties in with that, and that Alvin Toffler in his book Future Shock, probably about 40 years ago,
Yep.
said the more high tech we get, the more high touch we need. And I thought maybe you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, I would love to do that. As a matter of fact, you know, there are certain high points you have in a career as a futurist. There was a high point I had that, you know, because I started writing books and doing all this stuff back in 1983, and there were only a handful of professional futurists at the time, and of course he was the big one. And somewhere in the late 80s, Alvin, as well as his wife Heidi, who was a very significant role player in what he did, they were in the front row of a speech that I did, and we got to know each other. He liked what I was doing. So I got a connection with Alvin, which was really great. So talking about high touch and high tech, they always seem to be separate. It's either high touch or high tech. But one of the principles I've been teaching for a long time is the both and principle. It's not either high tech or high touch. It's high tech and high touch. It's not legacy technology and new technology. It's how you integrate the legacy technology with the new technology so that the integration has more value than either of them separately. So I believe that technology, if we just let it do its thing, cannot have much high touch. As a matter of fact, what I would like in the future is a more humane future. I would like a more connected future. I would like a more enlightened future. And in that case, sitting back and hoping for it isn't going to make it happen. I think you and I and all of us have to roll up our sleeves to make that happen. So we could end up with high tech and high touch being completely separate, but they don't have to be. We can bring them together. And that's what I was really alluding to. I think you got this about not calling it social distancing, because we can use technology like we're using right now, or FaceTime, or whatever kind of a phone or app that you've got or hardware you have to reach out and touch someone in a significant way. And again, that's high touch and high tech together. So Alvin, I'm glad I got to talk with him and get to know him and his wife, and it was sad to see him pass. Next question.
The question from Rick Hogentagler.
Hi, Rick. Hey, there you are.
Hey, Dan. Last week in your session, you talked about how many of the people, you know, with the quarantine were virtual, were remote. But as you said, this is a soft trend, and we're going to move out of it. So this week in our firm's AO War Room, we discussed what's going to be those disruptors as we move from the virtual, because it's not an and, it's an either or. So we're just trying to focus on what are those things we should be thinking about now. And I almost hate to use one of your terms, but doing a pre-mortem, what are the challenges we should be thinking about as we take people back into the workforce?
Yes, well, excellent question. And I thank you for that. So I do, he mentioned a phrase that I've used in my teachings. And of course, we got a lot of new people in here that are brand new and don't know anything about what I've taught. But basically, we tend to do postmortems, which means after we implement a new product, a new service or something, then we do a postmortem to learn from it and see why it failed. I like to do a premortem because that makes us a little more anticipatory, and use hard trends as well as soft trends to predict the problems that we'll have and then pre-solve them so we don't have them in the first place. So now that I've introduced that concept a little bit more, so to give some context to my answer, I think that you have to look at a lot of the problems and issues will be what I would call soft trends when you come back. You're not just going to say, hey, we're all free, let's come back, and we'll all be back. Or you can't just say, well, you're going to stay virtual, and you're not going to stay virtual. You're going to actually have to develop a protocol to that, and you should be doing it now. And instead of trying to figure it all out yourself with your core team, I think you should, why should we figure out something that's going to be impacting all of our employees? We should get them involved in a dialogue about figuring it out, because therefore they own it. instead of it being dictated down, here's how we're going to do it. It's like, you know, we have a little bit of time right now, and we are going to come back. We are going to come back in a different way, and we'll be both virtual and we'll be in the office. We want to make sure that this is done in the best way. And since you're a lot of the people that are going to be in the office, let's help us figure it out. So we're going to have a little bit of an online dialogue about that. We're going to have some online resources to kind of figure that out. And what we'd like to do is to pre-solve problems that we can see doing that. And I can talk more about the some of the other things that are involved in how we'll know who can come back when. By the way, let me bring it up now since I brought up the subject. How will we know who can come back? And how will we know who can go to a baseball game again? And how will we know when we can have people in a big gathering together? And that's going to be because of the antibody testing that we're going to be doing. Thanks to the California company that's already developed one that is very inexpensive and seems to work quite well. And that is, if you have an antibody test, and by the way, again, this takes currently, I think it's 19 minutes to do the test, so it's very fast. And so we can tell if you've already had it, which means you're immune. Yeah, well, great, come on in. We can tell that you don't have it, and we'll know if you've even been exposed to it. Well, all right, come in. You haven't been exposed. And we know who has it. Well, you can't quite come in yet. We know who has been within a distance of someone that has been exposed. You can't come in yet. Matter of fact, let me just take a few minutes since you brought it up because it's a big one. That is, we're going to be doing a lot with our smartphones. How do I know this? Well, we're already doing it in some other countries. Remember I said I like to look at near history. You can learn from it. So how are they doing it in some other countries? How are they able to go back? We're going to have to give up a little bit of privacy to make it work, but it's the only way we will be able to get this working for us. And we'll be able to get our privacy back and undo it once we get past this phase and we have a vaccine, but that's going to take a little bit of time. A vaccine to cure it, you know, again, the best scientists, now we're talking not hopeful thinkers, but scientists will say, you know, that's typically a year and a half that far away. And you might think, whoa, that's a long time. How are we going to survive a year and a half? Let me just bring that up and I'll get back to the app. First of all, what's not being talked about is something I'm starting to create that dialogue with government leaders around the world, including ours. And that is, what we want to do is have a combination of drugs, probably that already currently exist, so we don't have to do human testing on them. So that's what we're going to try to pick. And we're working on it right now. And those drugs, what do we want to do with them? We want to bring down the worst symptoms. That's the big deal. By the way, that's the game changer. I'm giving you the game changer right now. So we're going to bring down the symptoms. Why? Because we don't want, if we can bring down the symptoms where nobody needs a respirator, where you are having a bad flu, but no one needs a respirator, or almost no one needs a respirator. Well, that's a game changer. So if we can get it down to flu-like symptoms instead of a deadly symptoms, and we don't know who it's going to kill, that is going to give us the ability to start moving around and get capital moving again. And that's going to happen, by the way, a lot faster than a vaccine, which is a year and a half away. That's what all the best say. By the way, I do a lot of strategic advising with a number of the biggest drug companies. I've worked with them on their processes for developing new drugs. I'm not just talking as a guy who doesn't know. I've spent some time working on that, and I know, hey, you got to do this, you got to test it, and you got to make sure it's not going to kill more people than it's helping. So there is a path forward. I am giving you solid hope because there is going to be a combination we can find to bring the symptoms down. It's out there. People are testing for it now. It's already being researched. It just hasn't been talked about much. Getting back to the app very quickly, and boy, I'm giving you a long answer, but I'm kind of helping you to see where we're going with this. Already in South Korea and in Taiwan, you've got an app that you can use, and it's based on testing because they've got widespread testing like we'll have soon. And if you are tested positive for the virus, using that app, which does use Bluetooth, and it's connected, it's a national app, you can easily see who you were close to within the last few days while you were contagious. And they can be instantly notified to make sure they quarantine. What does that do? Flatten the curve. Because now we know you've been exposed. Right now, you don't know if you've been exposed. I don't know if I've been exposed. We're walking around blind. But if we know those things, we can keep the curve way down. Just like at some point, we're probably going to have a government app that's going to give us a color. Green is going to be you're immune. You've already had it. Red's going to be you've got it right now, and you've got to stay locked down and until you get past that 14 days. And there's going to be a couple of colors in between. Now, whether they'll use colors or some other icon, I don't know, but we're going to have to do that if we want to get back faster, because you know, the summer will come in this hemisphere. We're hoping that it will die down, but we know in the fall it will come back again. And that's why we want to get those ventilators and everything done. We want to develop that drug that can slow it all down. There's some things in the works to help this out. And that's why we need all of you doing something extraordinary and doing something significant. All right, let me get back on questions.
Yep, we've got a question from John.
Hi, John. I see you still are muted. Go down to the bottom, turn that mic off. See if you can get there. I'll give you another few seconds. Otherwise, we're going to go on to someone else because we got to make this happen. You could just take and I know in some cases you may not have your mic selected in the preferences of Zoom, or there may be some other way it's off. So you can check that while I'm taking questions from other people. We'll see if we can get back to John. We'll try another one. Thank you.
Yep, let's move on to Stan Walters.
Hi, Stan. What do you got for me? Got to unmute that mic. I know Stan. I recognize Stan. All right, try to get down to the bottom there. If you take your mouse down to the lower left, there's a thing that says mute, unmute. You got to check it. You may also not have your mic connected properly up in the preferences of Zoom. Tell you what, here's what I'm going to do. For those of you that I know there's a lot of questions. And by the way, it's not like I have free time to answer all these questions. I've got a lot going on in my world. But if it is a question that is going to impact and help a lot of people, you can send it to my office and I will try to get to that one as fast as I can, because I've been putting in some long days. But again, if it's one that could help a lot of people, I'll take the time. I'll try to get to you with it. Sorry about that, Stan. We didn't get to you. Let's try another one.
Let's go to Carolyn Johnson.
All right, Carolyn, let's see if we can unmute that mic. Oh, there we go. Go ahead. You might have to turn the volume up. I know your mic is unmuted. If you know how to turn the volume up. All right, well, we might have a problem with that.
Does that help?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Okay.
Whew.
Anyway, I have like a Joy Miracle Mop solution to a, what do I call it? The hand sanitizers. I have a very simple invention that I know will help everyone. And I need a confident person and a trusted person that I could explain this to figure out how to get it to market. And of course, I'm very hesitant on talking to anybody about it. And I'm wondering, either can you help me, or can you help me find someone who could help me?
A couple of different things, Carolyn. Thank you for your question. Number one, during the question and answer last week, there were people that, just like you, they stated something and there was someone else out there listening that had a solution or an idea, and they contacted our office afterwards and we were able to put people together. That's part of why I wanted to do this every week for a while, because we can learn from each other. And by the way, there were a number of really great connections that were made last week of people I didn't even know, but they could see, they could connect together. So I'm just inviting people out there that have an idea for Carolyn to let us know, and we'll see if we can connect you. Secondly, you know, one of the things that we worry about as innovators and inventors is protecting what we have. And I think that if you can get one big success out there, I'm sure you can get others. So it may be less worrying about sharing and protecting and more worrying about, again, significance and trying to get it out there fast because people kind of remember where it came from. One other, if it's really innovative and it might be patentable, let me give you a little secret ingredient that I did when I was in high school. I had an idea back when they had driver's ed, when I was in high school, for a way that a driver's ed teacher could simulate a malfunction. So I called it a simulated malfunction device. So you could simulate no gas or simulate oil going down. And I had this idea as a high school kid, and I did a little research and I found out, so here's what I'd like you to do. If you describe your invention and you put it in an envelope and you have it registered, you seal it, and you have it registered mailed to yourself and you don't open it, and you have later it becomes something that's big and you have a judge open it in court, you've actually got a legal document with a date on it, and it's a fast down, dirty way of at least showing when you thought of an idea and giving you some protection. And I've checked with some lawyers and they said, you know, I never heard of it, a little bit crazy, but you know what, that could work. So try that to free you to be significant. You can also send my office a little bit more and I'll see if I can help you on that. Okay, another one.
Okay, let's go to Tara Rogers Ellis.
Hello, thank you for your time.
Hi, Tara, I can hear you.
Good, I'm calling you from Dubai. What I'm very interested to understand is your perspective on how this crisis is impacting competition, whether it's in corporates or in healthcare or in scientists or down to the consumer.
Thank you, Tara. That's really a great question. I appreciate that. And I think that right now, the world and businesses, and again, this thing is happening at a different rate. One of the concepts that I like to talk about is doing a time travel audit, because the past and the present and the future all coexist simultaneously. So right now there are places in the world where the virus hasn't really gone yet. That's kind of the future, hasn't happened yet. There are places like, again, Singapore and China where it's happened already. And we can learn from that, and we can take what we learned from that and port it ahead. What I'm getting at is we're not all in the same place. Dubai might be in a different situation than, let's say, Africa or South America or here in the United States. So when it comes to competition, right now globally, we're kind of getting into a survival mode. Let's just try to survive right now. Now, you can get competitive advantage easily by doing what I'm talking about, and that is switching from the old way of competitive advantage, which is all about, it's not about significance, it's about success. And if you shift to significance and bring yourself up higher than you were before by doing something significant, when, again, this does ease and pass, which it will, you will be positioned beyond your competition. Many of you know I've started 6 companies over the years, and 5 were profitable in the first year, 4 were national leaders in the first year. And one of the things that helped me really well was to not compete, but to look at what the competition was doing and not do that, do what they weren't doing, because there's all the things they're doing, but hey, there's a lot of things they're neglecting, and that's where the sweet spot is. So in this case, most of them in the competitive world are still focused on the old ways of competing, the old market, all the things they used to do, where they used to go, which is a little bit like a rear view mirror. So while people hunker down, this is the time to rise up. And again, to ask yourself, what can I do that would be better for the world, better for everyone, given what my business does, that create a significant impact and can elevate my brand and what I do, because I'm thinking longer range, not just short range. And I think you'll see, while everyone else is hunkering down, just trying to survive and cut people out, you'll see there's a path forward in how to grow. Kind of like the example I gave of the dry cleaner. Or last week I talked about all the convenience stores shifting to being necessity stores. And when the pandemic is over, maybe they'll never go back to being a convenience store. Maybe it'll be a necessity store from then on. That same kind of idea, rethinking competition. And maybe the more, by the way, the more you focus on the competition, the more you look like them, the more you act like them. So I tend to not focus on them too much at all. All right, we got time for some more. Let's have a few more.
Just want to go back to 2 questions ago, Carolyn's question. I got a text message from a CEO that thinks he might be able to help Carolyn. So after the call, I'll make the connection between the 2 of them.
Oh, thank you so much. Look, if I can just do that here, it warms my heart. I'll be doing it more. When we can be helping each other and I can be a vehicle to help you to connect and do that, I mean, it's really cool. Okay, another one.
Okay, Mason Meyer, you're up.
All right, Mason, let's go down and get that mic turned. There you are.
Yeah, I'm quick to the draw. How are you today?
You are. Go for it.
Thank you. And I appreciate your forthcoming Fridays as well. This will be a nice way to end the week each week right now.
Well, thank you.
I work in the advertising business. I'm in radio. And one thing I'm trying to think about and work with my staff, we're in the state of Ohio, so we've done a pretty good job on locking down. You know, once businesses slowly ramp up in the future, it won't be like a light switch. You know, let's say it's June 1st. Talk a little bit about how you think the social psychology will be. You open a restaurant the first Friday night, you're not going to see a packed restaurant. I can't even imagine a third of the restaurant will be full because we're almost so conditioned in a very short period of time to not want to be around anyone physically. How do you see that panning out over maybe the 3, 6, 9 months from now?
Yeah, thanks for that, and Mason. And of course, there's a lot of human psychology involved in that answer. To kind of help you to think that through and others to think that through, first of all, the need to get out is there because we've all been homebound. So we got a huge pent up need, which means can't wait to get to a restaurant and be with people again. Can't wait to a bar and be with my buddies again to watch a game. Can't wait to do all this stuff. So there's this pent up need. However, there's also the realities because as the number of people going to the morgue increases in many areas, and as the number of people that are infected goes, you know, there's fear that goes in there. So the fear will be the counteractor to that going in. So the key is, so that we can get business happening again, how can we help people satisfy that social need to want to physically get together and get back to going to the bar and going to the restaurant and all that stuff, and not have the fear of, I don't know if I can go out. And that's where we're going to be seeing, and that's why we're really working hard at getting testing. And that's why I'm so excited about the antibody testing that is coming out so that we can get an idea of, you know, whether you are someone who's already had it. And by the way, there's a lot of people that have already had it. As a matter of fact, there's a giant number of people that have already had it because they've been asymptomatic. They didn't have symptoms, but they've had it and they're now immune. There's people that had a mild case. They thought they had the flu, but they actually had the coronavirus and they're now safe. So actually we're going to find out there's a large number of people that are totally safe to go out again. Right now we have no way to test. We will, it's already developed, that's coming. That will help because now I don't have fear about me going out or infecting somebody else. And I think there's going to be a way at a public facility like a bar and a restaurant, again, through an app of some way, that will be able to identify the people that are have officially tested and okay. And that will get us past that fear. There's also someone that has not tested positive. So again, I haven't had it, I'm not immune, but I just went to a drive-in window, which they've got in South Korea. You can get a results texted to you, and in this case, it'll be official, so that you could get in and say, look, I just had a test. Look, I don't have it. You can get in. And by the way, if you had a test and you did have it, you're 14 days and you got to be down. So we're going to get past the fear part that will keep it from coming in by testing, by the antibody testing, and probably through some mobile app that is approved from the government. We're going to have to do something like that, or we're not going to be able to get back to business very fast. At least that's the way I see it. Okay, another one. Thank you.
Okay, question from Dennis Flynn.
Hey, Dennis. Let's get that mic turned off. There you go. Go for it.
Can you hear me?
I sure
Hello,
can.
Dan.
Hi.
Good stuff, Dan. I was on the webinar last week too. So as usual, great stuff.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, one of the things to your point about significance versus success, one of the things that my group is doing, the B2P Partners Group, is we're going out to clients and prospects and friends and offering them our brains basically to think through their current situation and help them anticipate their future, stealing your words, but for free. We'll do that and we'll try to help you as best we can.
And I like that. Is there a question in there as well? Because I like what you're doing. And that is exactly what I would like us all to be doing is, let's not go forward with, hey, I got something I want to sell you. But let's go forward with something I want to give you. I'm here to help. I know you're in trouble. And it will pay off because, again, what you're doing is helping people deal with something that is emotionally challenging and a problem. And if you can give me some real solutions, what did we just start, Dennis? We started a relationship.
Exactly.
And by the way, the relationship will span time. I like what you're doing. I thank you for sharing that. Did you have a question you want to ask? And by the way,
yeah, I think, you know, you and I have worked together in the past, but my question would be, given the current situation and everybody's kind of fear and trepidation, you know, kind of FUD factor around what's going on, one of the things we're trying to do is loosen up and get them motivated to actually, you know, get on the phone with us in a virtual concept and talk through their issues. Do you see, or can you think of any kind of magic bullet or questions to get them to really open up to us?
Yeah, what I'd like you to be is anticipatory. And by the way, I want everybody using that phrase. I mean, if I could get everybody on the planet before I leave this planet to being more anticipatory, I'll be a happy camper. And in this case, what you want to do when you deal with a client is take a little look at their pain, their business, do a little hard trend analysis of things that you can see they're going to be facing. And so when you reach out to them, you already are talking about something that is a predictable problem they will have, and they'll know it the minute you say it. And we could help you pre-solve that so you don't have it in the first place. Or looking at, again, the situation they're in. And if you can start out with already a good idea for them, instead of start out with, I'd like to hear what you have to say and I think we can help. You've already shown you can help. So lead with a solution by looking at them ahead of time, because you usually do this anyway. Look at them ahead of time and look at, you know, what are they most likely really struggling with right now, and what are they most likely going to be really struggling with going forward, and nail them with that one, and you can probably bring them in. Why? Because they need that solution. They need to talk to you. All right, we're at the top of the hour, and frankly, I'm going to go a little over because I think we're doing some good things. I'm not going to go a whole half an hour over, but I think I'm going to go at least another 10 minutes to get a few more questions in because we have quite a few people still hanging in there. I can see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. So let's have a few more, and I'll do 10 more minutes. How's that? And then, again, we'll do this again next Friday, and I'll take a lot more questions. All right.
Let's go to Victor Abu.
All right, Victor. Let's looks like that. There you go.
Good evening.
Hello, Victor.
Yes, glad speaking to one of my most favorite people on earth, Daniel Burrus. Last week I spoke to you about my business, that I have a food business, but I didn't explain very well. But
yes, thank you, Victor. I was thinking about you. I need to know what kind of food business it is so that I can help you. By the way, I remember from last week, you were from Nigeria, I think it was?
Yes.
And
yes.
You're trying to find a way to help people.
Yes.
Victor, beyond the answer I'm going to give you right now, if you would contact my office and give me a way that I can communicate with you, I could
Okay.
help you offline as well from this, because if you can help a lot of people in Nigeria, I'd love to help you do that. So now ask your question and I'll see what I can do right now.
I really, really appreciate that. A few things you said struck me. In the line of my business, I do raw food and processed food. I don't cook them. So, and they're all purely organic. But when you said something struck me, when you said we should look at our core competencies, and that when you talked about the coronavirus, that we should bring down the symptoms instead of waiting for a vaccine. I thought about it that quite a number of foods in Africa have ingredients that the drugs have. And there are a lot of herbs, there are a lot of spices, there are a lot of organic foods. So I was thinking that, and I'm quite good in sourcing for food, agro produce. That's the core competency. So I was thinking that if it is possible to get the core components of the drugs that can bring down the symptoms, and a business could be started for significance, not really for success, that we could find the foods, the superfoods that have those core competencies, and then we can begin to supply them to people. So we can do them as like HelloFresh, and then we'll give to people, and people can be on a diet and you help them recover quickly until the drugs are out. Or we can also do juices. And I don't know if I'm making any sense.
You're making total sense. I'm following you. I like it. I like what I'm hearing.
Yes, so we can so that way, whilst a drug is being developed, the foods that are existing, the superfoods that are there, we can turn them to drinks, and people can be on some diet. We can do some food, some fresh organic food, and we can do a blend of things, and people just eat just a bit healthy or drink just a bit healthier, and they recover from they bring down the symptoms. Yes.
Yeah, all right. So let me give you some things right away on this, and I can talk to you a little bit more about this later, but there's two big areas here. One is keeping our immune system strong is really important. Again, that's daily exercise, it's eating really good, the best nutritious food you can, and getting a lot of sleep. So those are the three best things you can do to keep your immune system really doing well. So we're talking about food, and most people's diet is not that good. So for the people that are trying to keep from getting it, as well as the people that are trying to recover from it or have it, if you had more nutritious foods and drinks with good mixes, and by the way, I could tell you're a smart guy on food combinations by your questions, and I can talk to you about this later, but there are certain foods together that are indeed superfoods that are known to boost your immune system. You could put those kind of combinations together and in a significant way help people that are starting to get sick or are sick so that they don't have all of their symptoms elevate, or people that are trying to recover, or people that are worried. So I think that's a big one. We can talk more about that later, but that's a way to boost immune systems. The other thing that you mentioned, which is really great, is spices. You know, in the West, we're not as smart on ancient cures, but for example, in China or in Africa or in other parts of the world, they didn't have big pharmacies, so they used nature as their pharmacy. And they found all sorts of spices and herbs and other things that can be used to treat all sorts of diseases, including viruses. And I think you spending a little time to look at what are the combinations of those spices and those things that can be used that are known to attack viruses, and look beyond Africa, look in China, look in India, and you will find some combinations that I think could be really good. I think there's some significant work and some future products, maybe a whole new direction for you hidden there. Love it. Okay, another one.
Let's go to Anna Leota.
Hi, Dan. Thanks so much.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, healthy, and that's where we start, right?
I love that.
My
Thank you.
question is about, yeah, exactly. My question is about events. As you can imagine, as the president of the National Speakers Association, I'm looking at this for all of our colleagues and peers, and you were the chair of our big event last year. What are we going to see as far as people having confidence in gathering, whether it's 100 people? Will we see it in stages like 100, 250, 500? I'm assuming we're not going to see major sporting events, but what will we see as far as confidence to come back together for those kind of events?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, we can talk more about that offline as well. But as I was saying to someone earlier who had the advertising question, we're going to have the desire to get out and have these meetings. As you know, the events world wants to have their events, but there's also going to be the fear of getting together. And again, until you've got a vaccine, you can still get this thing. So there's that worry of, will the second wave be bigger than the first if it does die down in the summer? And that's where, again, the testing of antibodies is so important, getting widespread testing out so that we can, again, get an idea of who's had it, who hasn't had it, who can come to the meeting, who can't come to the meeting. And I see it kind of being part of your registration is a week before the meeting, you've got to get a test. And it's got to show you green or yellow or whatever color it is, so that you can get in the meeting. If you aren't, you have to stay home because we can't get you infected. And as I said, we will find there's a giant number of people that are already have had it and are immune. We just don't know it yet because we just got that announced yesterday, I think it was, that there was even a test for the antibodies. So that's going to be a prime, that's going to be driven fast, and that's going to help quite a bit. Secondly, you're right about really big events versus smaller ones. And again, we could have really big events again when we have the confidence that comes from those tests. And it's not like they haven't been invented yet. We already got one and we'll probably have more. So we will be able to see big events, including sporting events in our future, not that distant. We don't have to wait for the vaccine to get that kind of thing happening. I also see that the virtual events, which really most of the world hasn't really caught on to how do you do a virtual event, how do you have a virtual trade show, and I'm already starting to help some companies think through how you could do exactly that right now using technologies that we have to make it very robust. And remember, I talked earlier about the both and. So it's virtual speeches, virtual meetings, as well as physical meetings and even combinations. I could see in the future we're going to have physical meetings, but virtual elements within the physical meetings because it's a both and combination and giving us even more that we can do and provide. So there's a lot to that question, but I think there's a way for us to move forward faster with confidence because of some of the things that I announced in here today that really haven't made the news in a broad way yet. Let's take, we got 5 more minutes. Let's take another couple of them.
Okay, question from Vinay Apti.
All right, Vinay, let's get, there you go.
Hi, Daniel. Your talk was really nice. So my question is about startups. So I am advising a startup who works in the sports technology business. And the question is really, for next 5 to 6 months, the startup is not going to see any demand for their product. So should the 5 to 6 months be spent on just keep the lights on, or should it be like more double down and be more innovative and build new features which will be required once the market picks up? Thanks.
Well, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not a fan of just trying to keep the lights on and hunkering down. First of all, you're going to make a lot less money hunkering down. You're going to do a lot less significant work hunkering down, and you may be hunkered down for a long time. So I'm not a fan of hunkering down. I'm a fan of rather, instead of here's the things I can't do, what can I do? And it sounded to me like you were in the sports business doing some sort of, maybe it's monitoring. of athletes, or maybe there's a way of having intelligent clothes or intelligence to help you be better at your performance. I don't know all the details of your business and what you're trying to do as your startup, but again, all of that actually, you've been thinking sports. Now we've got to think of, hey, I want to monitor myself. So maybe you could take some of that technology and apply it not now to sports, although you can have that built in as well. But how could we help us monitor our own personal health and how we're doing, so that I can make sure that my immune system is doing the best it can. I'm getting enough of a workout in the walks that I take or whatever, fitting my age, fitting my physical condition, fitting my issues. Where's the safe place to go to make sure I'm not too close to people? Hey, I'm just going to invent something right now. What if we had a physical proximity beeper on our phone? Hey, why don't you make the app for that while you're thinking about what to do? So that if I'm getting more than 6 feet from somebody and I'm outside because it's using my GPS and telling me that I'm outside, when I'm getting within 8 or 10 feet, it starts giving me a little beep. So I know, oh, I'm getting too close to that person. Whoa, wouldn't that be good? How about in a grocery store? Whoa, wouldn't that be good? Hey, we just invented an app. Why don't you go do that and raise some capital? So you see what I'm talking about? Let's use our own creativity to come up with things that we need now that actually are within that core competency of your startup, so that you're not having to start a whole new startup. You've already got a core competency. I'm talking about applying it in a little bit different direction. All right, let's stop with questions, but let me have a couple of final comments. I'm excited about our future. It will not ever look exactly like the past. You can never go back. I ride a Harley-Davidson motorcycle because it doesn't have a reverse. Some motorcycles do. But you can never go back. So instead of trying to get back to where we were, which is difficult, I don't know if you will exactly get back to where you were. I would like us to go forward to a better tomorrow rather than back to the old yesterday, because we can do things better. We can be more connected, more humane. What if after this, we all just stuck with the idea of doing significant things? Like I said last week, when you really focus on elevating your significance, you'll find success is a byproduct. So I'm thinking this is indeed an inflection point, a turning point, well, it's a defining moment. That's how I started this out. And in this defining moment, I believe that we can not squander it, but elevate to it. And all of us together can do even more. Don't forget, I will be doing this next week. I'll be having some different concepts I'll share in the beginning, all around how the cost of saying no just got a lot more expensive. Give you some other examples of things that I'm helping people through and so on, and open it up to question and answer so we can learn and help each other. Go to Burrus, BURRUS.com/webinar and put in the number 3. Don't type in 3, put in the number 3, and then register for next week if you'd like to attend. Stay healthy, stay well, and we'll see you there.